My husband, Alexander, has always been surrounded by other women since we got married. Still, perhaps out of some consideration for me, his wife, he never uttered a word divorce. But this time with his secretary Camilla, he seemed serious.
My secretary is pregnant with my baby. When the baby's born, you'll take care of it, okay?
What kind of wife would happily raise a child born out of her husband's affair? When I silently stared at Alexander in disbelief, he didn't even flinch. Instead, he said,
What's wrong? Don't tell me you're jealous.
He laughed smugly and added,
You should be glad I'm not divorcing you. Be grateful and raise my child.
No way, I can't do that because you're secretary. When I finally spoke up, tired of his nonsense, beads of sweat started forming on Alexander's forehead. My name is Luna Garcia. I'm 50 years old. I've been married to Alexander, who's 2 years older than me, for 30 years. Together, we built a thriving hair salon business, which has now expanded to multiple locations. When we were younger, we considered having children, but life always got in the way, whether it was one of our parents falling ill, our own health issues, or financial challenges with the business. By the time things settled, we had missed the opportunity. Sometimes, when a former employee who had left to have a baby stopped by with their child, it'd feel a small pang in my chest.
The grass is always greener on the other side. Having kids might be wonderful, but a life without them has its own joys, don't you think?
Alexander's supportive words kept me going, both in work and in our marriage. In fact, about 10 years ago, I had Alexander focus exclusively on the business side of things.
Well, it's only natural. Luna, you're talented as a hairstylist, but your business sense? Yeah, not so much.
Alexander himself seemed to think that way, but the reality was different. When we were younger, Alexander worked as a stylist alongside me. His friendly demeanor, especially with female clients, made him very popular. But his skills were mediocre at best. Even so, customers insisted on Alexander and would complain bitterly if anyone else attended to them.
Excuse me. I wanted Alex to do my hair. Why are you even here?
It got so bad that staff members started quitting because they couldn't handle the backlash from clients. Honestly, I didn't want Alexander working in the salon at all. When he shifted to focusing on the business side, the salon began to run much smoother.
Wait, Alex isn't working in the salon anymore? Then he'll stop coming here.
Some regulars said initially, and we lost quite a few female customers, but through steady effort, our team managed to attract new clients, and business eventually stabilized. Over time, we even had young stylists featured in local magazines and on social media, making the salon more popular than when Alexander was actively involved. But Alexander wasn't happy about it. He started showing up at the salon unannounced, yelling at the staff, and behaving in ways that reeked of jealousy.
This place isn't being cleaned properly. Are you all slacking off just because I'm not here?
I, along with senior staff members, tried to calm him down, but the younger staff began to express their frustrations.
Luna, I mean no offense, but Alex is just a prideful mess who's not contributing anything useful.
Around this time, I started noticing a chill between Alexander and me.
We've opened new locations, so we need to mingle with the business community there.
Since we had separated our work environments, Alexander and I primarily saw each other in private settings. Despite that, he began spending more time away from home, claiming reasons such as frequenting nightlife spots, playing golf, or going on trips under the guise of inspecting popular commercial areas. I might have accepted it if it was strictly business. But soon I started getting calls from bars saying Alexander was too drunk to get a cab and needed me to pick him up. When I arrived, I often found him leaning on some woman, mocking me.
Oh, here she is. See, Alex, your wife's here to take you home.
Damn, Luna is here already? Guess I'll see you again, Maddie.
After a long day on my feet at the salon, I have to clean up after Alexander's drunken mess. With no children to consider, thoughts of divorce crossed my mind more than once. But we were also co-owners of the salon. Divorce could disrupt the lives of our staff, who had shared our struggles and successes. That thought held me back. And Alexander, seeing my hesitation, likely concluded that I would never initiate a divorce. He started openly frequenting clubs, bars, and lounges. He began indulging in his affairs openly and unabashedly, as if all restraints had been cast aside. Among his many flings, he became especially infatuated with a woman named Maddie, the most popular at his favorite spot. Maddie was 7 years younger than Alexander, and she was a single mom, raising her son alone.
Unlike you, Maddie's a real woman. She's gorgeous, kind, and knows how to make a man feel appreciated. If only I would met her earlier.
Alexander would grin and compare me to Maddie, watching for my reaction.
Imagine having to support a wife who's neither young, pretty, nor cute. Feels like a punishment, doesn't it?
He'd say such things loud enough for me to hear while chatting on his phone, doing whatever he pleased. If it were just personal insults, I might have endured it. But as his obsession with Maddie grew, Alexander began dipping into the company's funds, even using our joint savings. When that wasn't enough, he tried to cut staff salaries under the guise of cost-saving measures. I couldn't stay silent any longer. It's one thing to mess with me, but trying to cut staff salaries? What on earth are you thinking? If you do that, the entire team will quit, and then saving money will be the least of your problems. Reluctantly, Alexander backed down and dropped the salary cuts, but morale in the salon had plummeted. Around that time, it seems Maddie approached Alexander with an idea.
There's an old bar in a building just one stop over. The owner's thinking of retiring and moving to the countryside, so it's up for sale as is. What do you think?
For Maddie, even as the #1 favorite, her career had an expiration date.
Having my own small place would mean I'd finally be a boss, running my own bar.
That was likely her true intention. However, even for a modestly priced property, the initial costs, deposit, renovation, and other fees would amount to about $50,000. Add to that staffing, liquor inventory, and operational costs until she could build a steady clientele, and the total would easily approach $100,000. Maddie likely hoped Alexander would sponsor her or at least co-sign on a loan. But Alexander had neither the credit nor the assets to pull that off, so he came up with this.
Maddie's got a kid to support. How about you be the co-signer?
If you could co-sign, I'd consider that my parting gift and cut ties with Alex completely.
Maddie chimed in perfectly in sync. I was speechless at their audacity. The first time I heard this, I was furious at how brazenly they were mocking me. But after some advice from a trusted accountant, I responded, I can't co-sign, but am willing to consider paying some money as a parting gift." While Alexander protested a little, Maddie pushed him into accepting the arrangement. Apparently, she found a more generous sponsor, and Alexander was unceremoniously discarded. Alexander was devastated for a while after being dumped by Maddie, whom he'd been so infatuated with. But within 6 months, he bounced back, acting like it never happened.
She wasn't right for me anyway. Who cares about a woman like that?
He shrugged it off and resumed his pattern of womanizing. At that point, I didn't even bother to reprimand him anymore. I was too busy pouring all my energy into work. About 3 years passed this way. One day, Alexander showed up at the salon with a young woman in tow.
This is Camilla. I'll be working as my secretary. She's going to be my right hand, so treat her words as if they're coming from me.
As I and the other staff stood stunned, Camilla flashed a smile, though her eyes remained cold.
I'll do my best, so I hope we can all get along.
Well then, welcome aboard, Camilla. This woman is definitely not what she seems, I thought, but I maintained a calm facade and responded casually. Soon after, Alexander and Camilla began taking frequent business trips and inspection tours, indulging in luxury dining and shopping sprees. High-end restaurants, premium sushi places, designer boutiques, they spared no expense and barely spent half the week at home. Their reckless behavior drew repeated warnings from staff and local business associates, but I would always respond with a downcast look. "Thank you for your concern, but we don't have kids, and I know my husband feels unfulfilled because of that." Another year passed like this.
I have something important to talk about tonight, so leave the closing tasks to the staff and come here.
Alexander, in an unusually formal tone, sent me a message specifying a French restaurant located in a hotel near the station. If Alexander had something important to say, it couldn't be anything good. I got ready, resigned to hearing whatever nonsense awaited me, and headed to the restaurant after closing the salon. When I arrived, I noticed there was only one seat across from mine. So Camilla wasn't coming. It felt even more suspicious. As I waited, staring out at the city lights, Alexander finally arrived, grinning ear to ear. We made small talk as the food was served, and for a while, I enjoyed the meal in silence.
There's something I need to tell you.
Alexander brought it up abruptly.
My secretary is pregnant with my child. When the baby's born, I want you to take care of it.
Out of nowhere, he casually announced it with a beaming, almost smug expression. "Camilla's pregnant?" That alone was shocking, but the idea that he expected me to raise the child was beyond comprehension. "If Camilla is carrying your child, why should I raise it? Why don't you divorce me and marry her?"
I suggested that, but Camilla said, I can't possibly kick out the wife who stood by you through thick and thin. Just give me a lump sum for child support and he'll leave. Isn't that touching?
Alexander's eyes glistened with tears of admiration for Camilla's nobility. The sheer stupidity left me speechless. I looked him in the eye and calmly said, "No, I refuse, because that secretary." I handed him a thick folder from my bag, containing evidence of Alexander's corporate misconduct and a detailed report on Camilla. At first, Alexander looked puzzled, but as he skimmed the documents, sweat began to bead on his forehead. I had been waiting for this day for a long time. This all started back when Maddie brought up the bar funding idea. I was disgusted by Alexander and Maddie's shameless behavior, but a trusted accountant whispered some crucial advice to me.
It's a classic case of losing small to gain big, Luna. This is exactly what they mean by turning a crisis into an opportunity.
At first, I couldn't see how this situation could possibly be an opportunity, but as my accountant carefully explained, I started to understand. What's more, the senior staff who heard the explanation alongside me all said encouragingly,
"Let's go for it, Luna. No matter what happens, we're on your side."
Buoyed by their support, I vowed to get back at Alexander, Maddie, and Camilla, who had all treated me like a convenient, pushover wife. The first thing I tackled was establishing a business entity for the salon, which Alexander and I had been running as sole proprietors since its inception. The accountant had warned me.
If things stay as they are, you won't just be on the hook for Alexander's reckless spending, you'll end up saddled with his debts too. The salon's revenue is decent, but with Alexander burning through the budget under the guise of business expenses, the operation is essentially running on a shoestring.
For now, we were barely staying afloat, but one slip up could send everything crashing down. And he said that it might not be too far off.
It's all because of the redevelopment plans for this area. You've heard about them, right?
When he said that, I remembered hearing rumors from local business association members. Our salon's building stands along the main street that extends from the local train station. The street is narrow, with only one lane in each direction, and there's no nearby parking. As a result, while the rent for the location is relatively low for a storefront. However, according to the accountant, if the redevelopment project proceeds as planned, this entire area will be subject to rezoning and will likely be forced to vacate and relocate.
If that happens, the relocation costs won't be insignificant, and finding a tenant space under similar conditions will likely cost 1.5 times the current rent or even more, based on market rates.
In other words, the already precarious operation would inevitably collapse under rising expenses. So what should I do? Are you saying I should divorce Alex? When I asked this weekly, the accountant replied that divorce was one option, but there were steps to take first.
Start by incorporating the business and making Alexander the president.
At first, I couldn't see how that would turn a crisis into an opportunity, but the accountant explained that if Alexander continued his wasteful ways, it would quickly drain the company's funds. To prepare for that, we needed to set up a system where Alexander, as the company president, would be personally liable as a guarantor for any business loans.
Right now, you'd be on the hook as the guarantor for any loans taken out for the business. If that happens, even a divorce wouldn't release you from the liability. It would be incredibly difficult to remove your name.
What? Then what should I do?
That's why you make Alexander the president and yourself an employee. That way, if you divorce, he can't fire you without cause, and you'll have access to unemployment and social insurance benefits, reducing your risks significantly.
With that advice, I consulted with the bank representative we work with and decided to establish a company. Then I brought up the idea to Alexander. I'm not planning on setting up a full-fledged corporation right away. A limited liability company will be simpler and also save on taxes. Plus, having the title of president will come in handy for you when dealing with clients, don't you think? Initially, Alexander balked at the hassle, but the allure of the titled president seemed to win him over, and he readily agreed. Even after I explained all this, Alexander's response was wildly off the mark.
So what? You're not about to ask me to step down as president now, are you?
Not a chance. Who would want to captain a sinking ship? Of course not. Instead, as president, I need you to accept this. I placed a stack of documents on the table, topped with an envelope labeled resignation letters. It contained resignation letters from all 18 staff members, including myself. Alexander's face briefly twisted in shock, but he quickly blustered.
Do you think you're rebelling against me? Fine, let them quit if they want. There are plenty of replacements out there.
Oh, really? That's fine by me, but make sure you pay everyone's severance. And in my case, there's also a divorce agreement in that envelope, so don't forget to include alimony and property division. As I said this, Alexander's face grew increasingly pale.
And not paying any severance. And I don't care if we divorce, but there's no way I'm paying alimony or splitting assets.
He stood up, yelling desperately, but quickly sat back down when he noticed the judgmental stares of the other diners. I met his eyes with a cold glare. Is that all you have to say? If so, the rest will be handled by the lawyers. After all, neither you nor Camilla have much time left. Alexander looked bewildered. I urged him to carefully read through the documents again. Flipping through them lazily at first, Alexander's expression changed as he reached the later pages. Sweat began to bead on his forehead. What's wrong? You don't look so good. Ignoring me, Alexander's trembling hands kept flipping through the documents, his face filled with disbelief. It was no wonder. What Alexander was looking at was a printout of a certain website. It was a website where men, smitten by a certain beautiful woman, shared stories of being manipulated into giving her money and gifts, only to be lied to about her being pregnant and scammed out of large sums of money under the guise of child support. Though her face was partially obscured in the photos, anyone familiar with Camilla would instantly recognize her.
What is this? Are you saying Camilla tricked me? That she lied about being pregnant with my child?
Alexander asked in a groaning voice. I don't know, but it seems the police are already looking into it. With that, I told him my lawyer would handle the rest and left the restaurant. A few days later, Alexander, looking like he'd aged 10 years in mere days, showed up at my lawyer's office after receiving notice. For a brief moment, I felt a pang of pity, but remembering everything Alexander had put me, the staff, and the business through, I reminded myself that this was justice. The discussion began, with Alexander accompanied by his own lawyer. First, the two lawyers negotiated the terms of the resignations and divorce. To comply with the legal requirement of a 14-day notice period, the salon remained open and operated as usual right up until those 2 weeks were over. The only difference now was that the salon's posters and social media announced that no further reservations would be accepted, and the reopening date was undecided. Alexander's lawyer claimed this was dishonest. If the staff has expressed their intent to resign, wouldn't continuing to take reservations recklessly damage the salon's reputation? Ultimately, wouldn't that responsibility fall on Alex, the president? When I stated this firmly, Alexander's lawyer reluctantly fell silent.
We request that severance payments be transferred directly into each employee's payroll account alongside this month's wages,"
my lawyer said while presenting the documents.
And of course, if you object to Luna's divorce terms, we'll proceed to mediation and, if necessary, court.
Before his lawyer could respond, Alexander screeched,
I'm not paying any severance. I'll agree to the divorce, but there's no way I'm giving her alimony or splitting assets.
My lawyer and I exchanged a faint smile, ignoring Alexander's outburst, and addressed his lawyer instead.
When the company was established, wasn't the severance policy clearly outlined in the employment regulations?
Pointing to the relevant section in the documents, my lawyer continued,
It states that for voluntary resignation, employees must have at least 2 years of service. All those submitting resignations meet this condition, correct?
As this was explained slowly, the opposing lawyer's expression stiffened. He probably never expected a small business like ours to have a severance policy. But this was one of the measures our accountant had insisted on when we incorporated the company, saying, "It'll definitely come in handy someday." A proper severance policy not only strengthens your case in labor disputes, but also ensures delayed payment penalties accrued during unpaid periods. Additionally, the statute of limitations on severance is longer than regular wages, making it harder for the employer to evade responsibility. Hearing this, Alexander began trembling with anger. However, with no other options, he grudgingly agreed to pay the severance and outstanding wages, though he shouted back with a furious expression,
I'm still not paying any alimony or splitting any assets.
But I wasn't about to back down. Oh, is that so? Then, instead of a labor dispute, this will turn into a lawsuit for alimony and asset division. You seem to think I was unaware of Kamala's involvement all this time, or that I was turning a blind eye. But I let you carry on until I gathered solid evidence. Alexander looked stunned when I said that with a smirk. And if this goes to court, your gullibility in being conned by a young woman for money and gifts will also be laid bare. Are you prepared for that? I added with a chuckle, watching Alexander's face flush red with humiliation and rage.
Since that incident, I've lost contact with Camilla. If you know something, spill it.
Feigning pity, I informed him that Camilla was likely on the run with Maddie's son, Dylan, trying to evade the police. As it turns out, Camilla and Dylan were romantically involved. I discovered this when a staff member happened to see Camilla and Dylan looking very cozy on a date at a popular resort.
He came into the salon once with the boss for a haircut. Arrogant and rude, I recognized him immediately.
He even snapped a photo of the couple and accidentally posted it on social media, alongside other pictures. This post caught the attention of the administrator of the fraud victims website. Camilla used a fake name and lived in a short-term rental. She avoided taking photos with the men, claiming it's just an affair. The victims were desperate to track her down.
Unbelievable.
One clue was the resort Camilla frequented with Dylan. The victims combed through every social media post and blog tagged with that location, searching for her photos. Their determination is impressive. Alexander turned pale as I continued. The victims used this information to file a police report. When questioned by authorities, it came to light that Camilla had met Dylan while working at Maddie's bar and quickly fell for him. In an effort to win Dylan's attention, She diligently spent money on him, but when that wasn't enough, she resorted to scamming unfaithful older men, tricking them out of their money. Of course, Dylan was fully aware of this, and even went so far as to point out potential targets for Camilla, like Alexander, to scam in this instance. According to the investigation, Dylan bragged at bars, saying, "If my mom could manipulate that old guy, this is easy." Alexander's face turned ashen, and he fell silent. A man who tried to pawn off a child from an affair onto his wife, a woman who conned him for money, and a man exploiting that woman for profit, they're all despicable. Despicable people deserve to face the consequences of their actions, I declared firmly. As promised, I took action through my lawyer to ensure everyone involved paid for their crimes. First, I made this declaration to Camilla, who lied about being pregnant with Alexander's child in an attempt to gain recognition and extort money from him. You are fully aware that Alex was married when you had an affair with him, correct? Naturally, I'll be filing for alimony. She was also charged with embezzlement for misusing company funds on her trips and lavish purchases. The complaint was promptly accepted, and Camilla was questioned by the police.
Dating that old man was compensation enough for what I took.
She reportedly lashed out at the police officers with her usual flimsy excuses, but the world isn't that forgiving. Our accountant's meticulous audit of Camilla's records uncovered overwhelming evidence of her and Alexander's crimes. As a final blow, I submitted additional evidence, including hotel bills, airline ticket receipts, and receipts from luxury brand shops that the two had squandered money on. This proved effective, leading to Camilla's indictment. In addition, she was also indicted for committing fraud alongside Dylan, and the trial began.
To avoid a prison sentence, your only option is to pay substantial settlements to the victims, including Luna.
Camilla's lawyer, after reviewing the submitted evidence, reportedly gave her a firm piece of advice.
We don't care what happens to a disgrace like you anymore.
Desperate to avoid going to prison, Camilla reportedly begged her parents for help, but they disowned her, severing all ties. As expected, Camilla received a prison sentence. She is now serving time in a women's prison, spending her days sewing hats. Dylan, who conspired with Camilla to extort money from men, was also charged with fraud and blackmail.
If money is what it takes, I'll pay it. Please save my son.
Unlike Camilla, Maddie quickly sold her home and gave up her business to raise the money. She then pleaded with a skilled lawyer, using the funds to pay generous settlements to the defrauded men, successfully persuading them to drop their charges. However, the case gained massive media attention, with news headlines and weekly magazines proclaiming, "College student uses older woman to scam unfaithful men." As a result, Dylan was expelled from his prestigious university just 1 month before graduation, and his job offer was revoked. His social media accounts were also identified, and after Maddie and Dylan moved to a new apartment, persistent YouTubers began showing up, causing numerous complaints from neighbors. They were eventually forced to move again. Dylan, who had once boasted about his easy mode life and lived as a so-called winner, became consumed by paranoia.
I feel like everyone's pointing fingers at me, like someone's always laughing at me.
He became so terrified that he could barely leave the house, spending nearly all his time locked in his room, endlessly searching for mentions of his name online. Meanwhile, Maddie, having depleted almost all her savings on Dylan's trial, was left with no choice but to juggle multiple part-time and temporary jobs to support their household. As for Alexander, who had long tormented me with his affair with Maddie, he faced a devastating blow. His dream of having a child with the young and beautiful Camilla was shattered when he discovered it was all a lie.
Everything was fake, so I was just a convenient money source completely duped by Camilla and Dylan?
He prided himself on being a savvy businessman, but the truth was, he had always relied on me. After I and the rest of the staff resigned, the salon's revenue dropped to practically zero. On top of that, severance payments to all staff members, including myself, along with overdue operational expenses, quickly plunged the business into debt. Naturally, Alexander, as the company's president and guarantor for its loans, was held responsible for repayment. But he defaulted, and the bank promptly cut ties with him. Desperately, he scrambled to find new business partners, but no one was willing to listen to him anymore. Backed into a corner, Alexander borrowed from predatory lenders. Unable to keep up with the repayments, he eventually disappeared from the city altogether. Rumors circulated that he was either forced to work in some faraway town or on the run to avoid being caught, but I no longer cared. As for me, even amid the chaos, I focused on earning back the trust of the staff who had stood by me. I met with our business partners and banks to explain what had happened and my plan to lead the salon as its new owner. Thanks to the business plan I developed with the accountant and the support of the local business community, I secured the funding needed to restart. We relocated to a more advantageous location, and through the hard work of our team, the salon's performance steadily improved. Today, we have even more branches than we did when I ran the business with Alexander. My days are busy but fulfilling.
Luna, you look more vibrant than ever. Honestly, you look younger.
The staff teased me. It's true, while not exactly a detox, I realized that Alexander had been like a harmful toxin in my life. And though it took me years to cut him off, I owe Camilla some ironic gratitude for giving me the push I needed.
It's the era of living to 100. Why not consider remarriage and make the most of it?
Seeing how content I seemed, my accountant occasionally suggested this to me, but for now, I plan to focus on my work and fully enjoy my second round of single life.